All right, we are just pulling into the Hidden Valley Mushroom Farm, and I thought I missed it because the turnoff. But you can see we are headed right up here. I'm going to show you all there is to know about these really cool logs and just why we're putting them in our garden space. I think you're going to like this. Sometimes you meet an individual and they are just absolutely passionate about what they do. And the place I went to yesterday to get these mushroom logs or mushroom sticks, whatever you want to call them, the person who owns that place, and it's a small farm, a couple of workers there, the person that owns that place, Eddie, was that person. Clearly passionate about what he does, which is to grow an enormous amount of mushrooms in a pretty small space. And I'm really excited to show you what this log can mean for our garden. We're headed toward the Wisconsin Dells to pick up a product that we've never actually put in our garden before, but we're pretty excited about. And I'll tell you more as we get there. The place we're headed to is called the Hidden Valley Mushroom Farm. And my understanding is over the course of the year they have quite a few different mushrooms, etc. available. Right now what we're headed here to get is something called a mushroom log. We've never put these in the garden before, but supposedly once they grow the mushrooms on these logs, they break down quite easily. And they're quite good for your compost and good for your garden in general. So we're going to see how many of these we can fit into this vehicle and take home and put in the garden. Here's the Kalahari Resort, an indoor water park. It means we're almost to our destination, about 10 more minutes. We're entering here into the Dells. We're getting close. We're about 2 minutes out, another mile to go. Nice back roads area here. It's beautiful country in here. It looks like right over here is our destination. All right, we are just pulling into the Hidden Valley Mushroom Farm, and I thought I missed it because the turnoff. But you can see we are headed right up here. So these are...
It's all shiitake.
These are all shiitake?
You can see here, this is the new ones coming up on this one. We go with the cycle, so we're still picking these. This is all going to be probably some on Monday.
So how quickly do they grow?
Huh?
How quickly do they grow?
Well, it depends. The temperature around 60, we talking 7 to 10 days.
7 to 10 days?
And picking about 2 days.
Are they...
We're moving it quickly, 2-week basis.
It's really humid in here. Yeah, so you have to keep a nice moisture in here?
Yeah, we keep it around 85, 90.
85 to 90? I just got back home and you can see that I packed the back of this vehicle full of these mushroom logs. And you can see this one was actually outside, and so the owner gave it to me in addition, and it had some mushrooms growing right on it. This has been outside for over a year, but these mushrooms keep popping up on it. It fell off because unfortunately it rolled around a little bit, but you can see some of the makeup of this log. We've never put anything like this in our garden before, but after learning and researching about these and seeing some of the potential, we're really excited for what this is going to add, nutrient-wise and bigger picture, what it's going to add to the, I guess we could call it the underlayer or underworkings of our garden. I think the first thing we need to discuss is what these mushroom logs are made out of. This is a mixture of sawdust and bran. Bran, which is nitrogen rich to feed the mushrooms, which is something that they need to grow. And you can actually see some of the mushrooms that are growing on here right now, and these are just leftovers. When these are in full bloom, the mushrooms on here are huge. They can get so big. And one of these logs can produce upwards of 2 to 3 pounds of mushrooms. And they bloom up to 3, maybe even 4 times. And speaking with the gentleman there, what we found is that he mentioned if you were to finish with these, cut off all the mushrooms, and just discard them outside on the ground, they would come back year over year. They would still produce some mushrooms. Now these have already been harvested off of, but we could still grow, and we're still going to grow some more mushrooms on here. These are shiitake mushroom logs. So these are shiitake mushrooms that we're growing on here first. And you can see again the remains of a small shiitake mushroom here. But these were shiitake mushroom logs, and as a special treat, we also bought some of those shiitake mushrooms. Let's take a look at this 10 pounds of mushrooms we just bought. These are all organic, 100% organic. These are our oyster mushrooms. Now these, we're gonna have to eat up first because they don't preserve as well. We can keep them in the refrigerator for a short period of time. But these shiitake mushrooms, which are fantastic, and these are absolutely delicious. These preserve a lot better, and we can freeze these, according to the gentleman we bought them from. He said all we have to do is remove the stem, the shaft here, cut it off. We can cut that into smaller pieces as well. We'll cut this into the size pieces that we want, put it in the freezer, and these will be good to go for quite some time. I read up to 6 months. I don't think they'll last nearly that long. So these types of mushrooms are going to be so delicious. We've already been eating on these shiitake and on these oyster mushrooms, and I can tell you their flavor is outstanding. They even taste really good with our fried potatoes. This is 100% organic material, and as an added bonus, we get a whole lot of mycelium. And if you've never heard of mycelium, whenever you think of permaculture and you think of the different layers of growing, underneath the surface, the web, I guess you could call it, of life and all those things that are happening below the ground where you can't see them, mycelium is right up there in importance. When you think about mushrooms, you typically think about what you can see popping up above the surface. And that makes sense because that's typically what we pick, and if it's safe, that's what we eat and enjoy. But below the surface, there is a network of strands stretching everywhere, reaching out, called the mycelium. And mycelium binds itself to the roots of the other plants in your garden or your trees or wherever you're growing. So there's that huge web that you can't see where this mycelium is binding itself, and in over 90% of the cases, assisting the plants in nutrient absorption. So plants that are bound with this mycelium are going to grow bigger, better, faster, stronger. That sounds almost like a song. The interaction with the mycelium is positive. And so by adding these logs, which have underneath the surface here all of that mycelium already developed and growing, we're adding another level of health and nutrition to our soil. Mycelium develops and feeds on wood chips and other organic material and breaks it down, and the end result is just really highly nutrient dense soil. The makeup of this log, once the mushrooms have already grown and been harvested, is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2% nitrogen content and 2% potassium. The other thing to note is that the pH of this log is somewhere between 5 and 6. So it's slightly more acidic. This log breaks down very easily because, again, it's just sawdust. And so I can pull it apart like this and it is just crumbling. So if you have a wood shredder, if you do tilling and instead of no-till and you want to drop it under a tiller, it'll break apart, or just use your hands. This will break apart and quite quickly decompose and again create the soil. Now I tried to get Eddie to do an interview with me, but I gleaned as much knowledge from him as I could in those few moments, and let me tell you, he knows his mushrooms. He told me all about these logs and even showed me a place where he was growing tomatoes just in this wood chip matter. And he told me that the tomatoes he was growing, the plants themselves, clearly an indeterminate variety, grew to over 8 feet tall and he had to trim them back. But he had no problem growing, again, just in this material. So if we're able to take this material grind it up, add it to our compost, add it to our raised beds, add it to our main garden, we're going to see some serious health benefits that don't just end with one season, but develop over time as that mycelium continues to grow. Another thing to consider about these logs is that they're not all that expensive. And so you can get more of these than perhaps a more traditional type of supplement to add to your soil. One of the cool things that Eddie did was to show us how to grow more mushrooms off of these logs. They've only been harvested off of one time, and so we have the opportunity to try to grow some more shiitake mushrooms here in our own indoor growing setup. But that is for a different video. You should really check out the mushroom logs. The place where we went was fascinating. I will definitely be taking the family up there to enjoy, to explore, to see a little bit more of what they have to offer in the different seasons. And we are 100% going to go enjoy some of those shiitake mushrooms. Yeah, it's going to be a great day. Maybe you were inspired to try these logs in your own garden. If you can get a hold of them, we'd love to know about it. If you've seen these before or heard about these before, we'd love to know your experience using these logs in your garden or your compost or your raised beds. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like, leave us a comment. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And as always, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.